I don't know if she'll be a player for the Fever next year, but she's going to be on the roster, or they're going to have her rights. Worst case scenario, she's cored and traded. But it does appear that Kelsey Mitchell is going to be a member of the Fever next year, which means the Indiana Fever seem like they're going all in.
Caitlin Clark just did something that could change the entire Indiana Fever offseason before it even fully begins. She did not rant. She did not call anyone out by name. She did not make some reckless, emotional statement. But what she did do was just as powerful. On national television, Clark made it crystal clear that bringing Kelsey Mitchell back is the priority. Not one option, not one possibility, the priority. And the second she said that, the pressure on Stephanie White and the Fever front office went through the roof. The source material frames it as Clark publicly making Mitchell's return the absolute #1 priority and putting White in a difficult spot before training camp even starts.
Okay, you guys made the semis of the East last season. You had to watch from the sideline.
Yeah, it was tough.
Expectations, goals of this season, what you got for me?
I mean, we were trying to win it all last year, and that's certainly what we're trying to do this year. You know, it's a very unique situation. I think there's over 100 players in the league that are free agents, so we really only know about 5 people or 3 people that are going to be on our team next year, but I feel like we have a great core. You know, our first priority is to sign Kelsey Mitchell back.
Because now this is not just an internal basketball discussion anymore. Now it is public. Now the fans know. Now the media knows. And now if Indiana fails to get this done, everyone will know exactly what Clark wanted and exactly who the organization did not listen to. So here's the question. If you are Indiana, do you pay whatever it takes to keep Kelsey Mitchell, yes or no? Comment below. Because this is where the story gets serious. The biggest twist here is that Clark did not go on TV and distance herself from Mitchell. She did the opposite.
Heard it here first from Caitlin Clark that the Indiana Fever's first priority is signing back Kelsey Mitchell. Now, the reason there's been speculation as to if Kelsey Mitchell will return to the Fever or not is because of the new CBA and how the new salary structure is. So essentially, each team is able to afford 2 max contract players. The problem with the Fever is that not this season, but next season, there will be 3 players who will be up for that max contract: Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell's obviously a max contract player. This year, it could be her and Aaliyah Boston, but what does that mean for next season? But it seems like the Indiana Fever are in win now mode. So even if they can sign Kelsey for a 1-year max deal, they're able to run it back with their big 3. And like Caitlin said, if we are able to get these players back on our team, if we're able to get this big 3 again, then we should be the favorites to win it all.
The transcript makes clear she wants Mitchell back, wants to run it back, and wants a real shot at winning with this core while healthy. And that matters because this was not just a polite teammate compliment. This was Clark telling the world she already knows who she trusts beside her. That is why this hit so hard. Usually, a player this early in her career stays careful. She gives the safe answer. She says she trusts the front office. She says whatever happens will happen. She keeps it diplomatic. Clark did not really do that. She pointed directly at the player she believes is essential to Indiana's next step. And once she did that, the power dynamic changed, because Kelsey Mitchell is not just another guard on the roster. She is not just a familiar face. She is the one player who has already shown she can thrive next to Clark at a high level.
Obviously, there's a ton of free agents this year. There's over 100 free agents in the WNBA. And she said, you know, we might have 5 players or 3 players coming back. I think what she's alluding to here is the 3 players who are essentially still under contract with the Fever are Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Michaela Timpson, who are all still on their rookie deals. Now, on top of that, we know that there's an expansion draft coming up, and the team will have to core 5 players. Lexi Hall is a restricted free agent, which means that it's more likely that she would come back, or at least the Indiana Fever have a chance when it comes to her negotiating with other teams to keep her on the roster. And then on top of that, obviously Kelsey Mitchell is that first priority. So if I were to read between the lines here, that's probably what she's saying.
The transcript describes Mitchell as the heartbeat of the Fever backcourt, Clark's running mate, and someone who makes the game easier for her. That is the key point. This is not about friendship. This is not about sentiment. This is about basketball. When Clark has the ball, defenses panic because of her range and passing. They want to load up on her. They want to trap her. They want to make someone else beat them. But Mitchell changes that equation. If Mitchell is on the floor and hitting shots, the defense cannot just swarm Clark without paying for it. And when Clark bends the defense, Mitchell gets cleaner looks than most guards in the league. That is a real backcourt formula. That is not theoretical. And Clark clearly knows that if Mitchell walks, Indiana is not just losing a scorer, they are losing chemistry, they are losing rhythm. They are losing one of the only partnerships that already looks dangerous enough to matter in big games. The transcript even frames it as a connection that took a full season to build and one that could send Indiana back to square one if it disappears. Therefore, this becomes a direct challenge for Stephanie White. And to be fair to White, this is a brutal position for any new coach. A new coach usually wants time to evaluate the roster, time to install a system, time to decide what kind of team she actually wants. But Clark has now publicly accelerated that whole process. She has effectively told everyone what the Fever's championship formula should be before White has even coached a full season with this group. That is where the panic mode part comes from. Not because White is literally on camera panicking, but because the situation itself is loaded with pressure. If White and the front office agree with Clark, they still have to make the numbers work. But if they disagree, now they are not just making a basketball move. They are making a move that looks like it goes against their superstar's vision. The source material explicitly frames this as Clark telling the world who has to be on the team and forcing leadership into a high-stakes decision. And that brings us to the real problem: money. Because keeping Mitchell is easy to say, it is harder to do. The transcript keeps circling back to the same front office headache. If you commit big money to star talent, how much depth do you lose everywhere else? It even frames the dilemma as star power versus two quality players, with cap pressure tightening the whole roster. That is the nightmare scenario. You keep your stars, everyone celebrates, the headlines look great, but your bench gets thinner and thinner. Then the regular season exposes you, then the playoffs expose you even more. So this is the gamble. Clark appears to be saying the top-end talent matters most. Keep the elite pieces together, trust the chemistry, trust the firepower. But front offices do not always think like that. They think in numbers. They think in rotation pieces. They think in cap flexibility. They think about what happens when one injury changes everything. That is why this is such a fascinating power play from Clark. Because she is not only speaking like a franchise player, she is speaking like someone who understands leverage. The transcript actually presents this as a completely different side of Clark. Not the quiet young star from Iowa, but a player who understands her public influence, speaks directly to fans and ownership, and is comfortable using that leverage. And honestly, that may be the biggest story here. Caitlin Clark is no longer just the player people build hype around. She is becoming the player people have to build with. That is a major shift. Because when a player of her stature says something publicly, it does not stay inside the building. It becomes pressure, it becomes conversation, it becomes expectation. And once fans latch onto it, the organization loses the ability to quietly move in another direction. The transcript even notes that if Mitchell leaves, the backlash would be immediate, severe, and impossible to hide from. And that is why this offseason suddenly feels bigger than one contract. This is really a test of whether Indiana truly understands what it has in Clark, a test of whether Stephanie White can lead a team where the star already has massive public influence, and a test of whether the Fever are ready to act like a franchise chasing a title right now instead of one still figuring itself out. Because Clark's message was not subtle. She believes Indiana can win. She believes Mitchell is part of that. And she clearly is not interested in taking a step backwards just because the cap sheet gets uncomfortable. That is what makes this moment so important. This was not noise. This was not random off-season drama. This was Caitlin Clark planting a flag, and now the Fever have to decide whether they are going to follow it. So if Indiana cannot get this done, what do you think happens next? Does Clark stay patient, or does this become the first real crack in the Fever's championship push? And if you're still watching, drop "Run It Back" in the comments.
Kind of random, but I saw that Caitlin Clark said earlier that you're her favorite player to watch in the NBA. I'm just curious if, what your familiarity is with her, if you've kind of kept up with her.
We have the same agent. That's why she said it.
Caitlin Clark may not even play for the Connecticut Sun, but what just happened around this franchise feels like a rejection of everything her rise brought into the WNBA. Because a huge sale was sitting there, a bigger future looked possible. And instead of embracing that moment, the league slammed the door shut. And that is exactly why this Connecticut Sun drama suddenly feels a lot bigger than one team.
Fever are currently building a world-class performance center. And what's crazy about all of this is that I don't believe they have this $78 million project if Caitlin Clark don't join a team. That's just my personal opinion about it. But it goes on to say the Indiana Fever have had a tremendous success over the last 2 years, ever since drafting who? Caitlin Clark. In 2024, the team became the most popular team in the WNBA and also made the playoff consecutive years. Now, before Caitlin Clark got there, they wasn't making the playoffs, y'all. I just got to keep it real. I mean, like, no disrespect to Kelsey Mitchell, but if Kelsey Mitchell was like that, they would have been making the playoffs, bro. I just got to be honest.
At the center of it is DeWanna Bonner, one of the players most connected to what the Sun have built. And whether you think the league made the right business move or not, you can understand why veterans would look at this and feel insulted. Because this was not just a quiet ownership update. This was a chance to move the franchise into a bigger market, upgrade the environment, and finally match the level of attention the league is getting now. Instead, the message feels like wait your turn. And that is where Caitlin Clark comes in. Because Caitlin Clark is not really the person being rejected here in a literal sense. She is the symbol of the new WNBA economy.
People could feel how they want to feel, but before Caitlin got here, y'all was in a sunken place. Like, let's just be for real. Not just y'all, so don't feel bad, but the WNBA as a whole was in a sunken place. Now, the article goes on to say, sure enough, with how the team is doing, there's plenty to look forward to in its future. Off the court, the Fever are also working to keep providing the best place for players to improve their game. That commitment is on full display in the team's $78 million facility.
More attention, more ticket demand, more media pressure, more urgency, more eyes on every decision the league makes. The transcript makes that point over and over. It argues that the Caitlin Clark era has changed the math, changed the money, and changed what fans expect this league to look like. So when the WNBA blocks a massive opportunity tied to a major market, it feels like they are rejecting the kind of future Clark represents. Here is the basic story. The Connecticut Sun were reportedly lined up for a sale tied to one of the Boston Celtics owners. That is why so many people immediately started thinking bigger. Boston market, bigger resources, bigger stage, same region, new life. But the league stepped in and blocked that path, arguing that Boston had not gone through the proper expansion process and that other cities already had priority. That is the official side of the story. Cities like Houston, Toronto, and Portland had already gone through the process, and the Board of Governors holds the power over relocation decisions. Now, on paper, that sounds orderly. It sounds fair. It sounds like governance. But in practice, it also sounds painfully slow for a league that is growing right now. Because while the WNBA is trying to keep everything in line, the players are looking around and seeing a different reality. They are seeing franchise values exploding. They are seeing new money coming in. They are seeing the sport finally getting mainstream attention. And they are asking a simple question: if the momentum is here now, why are we acting like we have all the time in the world? And this is where the Connecticut Sun become the perfect example of that tension. The transcript paints a brutal picture of the current setup. The Sun were described as not being a true destination. Their facilities were described as not being up to standard. One of the most memorable details is that they were sharing court space with kids' birthday parties. That image sticks because it cuts right to the heart of the problem. You cannot tell fans the league is entering a new golden age, while one of your serious franchises still feels stuck in an old version of the sport. So from a player point of view, especially a veteran point of view, this is where the anger makes sense. They are being told the league is booming. They are being told the future is bright. They are being told standards matter. But when a major ownership move shows up that could lead to a stronger market, better visibility, and potentially better infrastructure, the answer is no, because the process matters more than the moment. That is why this story has teeth. It is not just about where the Sun play. It is about who gets to shape the future of the league. And the timing makes it even bigger. This controversy is happening in the shadow of collective bargaining tension. The transcript argues that players want a greater share of the league's growth and more influence over how franchises are managed. So if the league can block a major sale and effectively decide where a franchise can and cannot go, what does that really say about player power? It says the board still holds the cards. It says player preference is secondary. And for a veteran like Bonner, that has to feel like a warning sign. Then you add the Houston angle and the whole thing gets even messier, because this is not just Boston being denied. The transcript frames Houston as the likely alternative and even hints at the cynical view that this is about rewarding existing power structures and existing relationships. Whether that is fully fair or not, it is absolutely how fans and players are going to read it, especially if the Sun end up relocated while the Boston opportunity never gets the same serious chance. The optics are terrible. Connecticut fans feel ignored, players feel moved around, and the league starts to look less like it is following demand and more like it is controlling who benefits from the boom. That is why the phrase rejecting Caitlin Clark's future hits, even if it is more symbolic than literal. Because Caitlin Clark stands for acceleration. She stands for the version of the WNBA that is too big now for small thinking. She stands for the idea that if the audience is here, the infrastructure needs to catch up fast. And this Sun situation feels like the opposite. It feels like a league trying to manage explosive growth with cautious, bureaucratic instincts. That may protect process, but it can also suffocate momentum. My view is simple. The WNBA may be technically within its rights to control this process, but that does not automatically make it the smart move, because the league is no longer in the stage where it can afford to think small, move slowly, and assume fans will just wait. The Caitlin Clark effect has raised the stakes for every single decision, and when you block a move that could have upgraded one of your serious franchises while asking everyone to believe in a bigger future, you invite this exact backlash. That is why Dewana Bonner being furious actually makes sense. Not because this is only about one player, not because this is only about one team, but because this feels like veterans looking at the biggest moment in league history and realizing they still might not get a real say in where it goes next. And if that is true, then this Connecticut Sun sale drama is not a side story. It is a warning. So now I want to hear from you. Did the WNBA protect the league here, or did they block the exact kind of move this new era demanded? And if you are still watching, drop Boston in the comments.